Today we're going to be learning how to do these torn paper landscapes. A landscape is simply just a picture of the outdoors, and it's very simple to do with pretty dramatic effects. All you are going to need are a few pieces of construction paper in different colors. You gotta have black, and a little black marker for details, and some glue. Okay, we're gonna start our torn paper collage, and I have just set out a few pieces of construction paper. The blue is going to be our background. I'm also going to be using some red, black, there's some brown hiding on there, orange and yellow. If you don't have these exact colors, that's fine. You can just kind of improvise. The nice thing about this project is it's actually not that much work, and you can get really kind of amazing results. I think it would actually look wonderful to do this project 3 or 4 times in different colors and put them all on the wall next to each other. So my blue is going to be my background, and I did actually use a scissors for this part. So most of this project is going to be torn with our hands, but we are going to use a scissors for some parts. And I'm just going to go ahead and put my little sun in the background over there. And now we are going to go ahead and we're going to start with some torn paper. So I am actually going to start with some yellow. You can see I cut out the circle from there. And the interesting thing about construction paper is it actually has a grain, which means there is a direction that the paper has been pressed, and you should be able to tear it into strips. If when you tear it, it goes into strips easily, that means you're working with the grain, which is good. If it doesn't tear easily, you're working against the grain and you should turn it in the opposite direction. So I'm going to tear a strip. You see how easily that comes off as one strip? That's because I'm working with the grain. If I were to go in the other direction, it doesn't get as straight of an edge because I'm working against the grain. So for this project, you want to work with the grain just to make your life a little easier. And we're going to be building up in lots of layers for this. So I am going to first go ahead and put some glue on the back. And part of the nice thing about working with the torn paper is you get that fuzzy edge, which is imperfect, and that actually looks nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right on there. And we are going to start building up some layers. So now I'm going to go take my orange. I'm going to rip another section of orange, and I'm going to put that right on top of the yellow. So we're just building some layers there. Now I'm going to come in with red. We're kind of working from light to dark, so I'm starting with my yellow, going to my orange, my reds, and then eventually my browns. So this one is slightly uneven, but that is still totally fine. You can put it right on there. And because it didn't go all the way to the edge, I'm actually just going to go ahead and rip another piece of red. That piece does not want to stick down. So this one, I think, oh, I actually like how that looks right there. So you can kind of play around. I'm kind of going for this sunset-y background look. So it's actually a good idea before you glue down your paper. Just kind of play with it. Put it down and see where you think it looks good. I think that piece looks pretty nice right over there. Now I'm going to do even a little bit more red to just cover this edge down here. I do like that shape a lot, but I don't like how that doesn't cover the blue. So I'm going to leave that there to the side. I'm going to switch to my brown. Tear a strip of brown. That looks better. You can see I put my darkest color all the way at the bottom. And now this piece, which I'm still really loving, I think I'm gonna put just like that. You can see it almost kind of looks like mountains. Love that. And now I just think I need maybe a little bit more detail of the orange and a tiny bit more brown. And these pieces, they don't have to go across the full length of the paper. You can kind of make shorter peaks and valleys too, if you like. So I thought that one was a little too small. So I'm trying to get one that's the right size. I don't know, I don't love that. That looks good. So I'm gonna put this right down here at the bottom. And I think I'm gonna do a little more brown right over there. I'm trying to tear this so that it goes down to have a little bit of a pointier bottom. That kind of makes them more of a mountainous look. So yeah, I like how that looks right over there. And now it's going to be time to add our trees. So my trees are all going to be black to create that silhouette look. A silhouette is when something is standing in front of the light, so that the object just looks black and you can only really see the background. So for this, you could rip it or cut it. So I'm going to experiment as I'm going. So I'm going to do some rip. So that's a pretty nice straight line. It's a little thicker than I would like for my tree, so let's see how that goes to trim it down a little bit. If you're not getting a thickness you like by ripping it, you can totally use the scissors for this part. So I'm okay with that. And we want to have multiple sizes. The trees that are going to appear to be in front should probably be on the thicker side, and the trees that are going to appear to be in back are going to be the thinner trees. These big guys are in the foreground. That means they are in the front of my paper. But we are going to do some smaller trees that are supposed to look like they're in the background and further away. And for those, we're going to want to use much thinner strips. So I'm going to go ahead and rip this guy. And if you are having a hard time ripping a thin strip, like I actually want it even smaller than that, you can just go ahead and take your scissors and cut it for this part. If you're having a hard time ripping, just cut it, because the fuzzy edges are not quite as important for this part of the project. So these trees, you'll notice, start at the bottom and go off the page. You can't even see the full tree because it's so up close in the foreground. These skinnier guys, you are going to see the whole tree because it's going to be in the background. So I'm going to take one of my scraps here to glue, just so I don't get glue all over my table. And I'm going to put one right here, kind of sticking out of that little brown peak right there. And I'm going to do another one. Let's see how big this one is. I want it to be a little shorter, which it is. Coming out right next to it, like its little buddy. So now let's see, let's get that stuck on there. I am going to take some of these little scraps, I'm gonna stick them down, cut them down, rip them down, either way, even smaller. And I'm just gonna put on a few branches on each of these trees. So the thicker the tree, the thicker the branches. So this is a fat tree up in the foreground. So its branches are going to be at the wider side. The skinnier trees will have thinner branches so that everything is proportional. One nice thing about if you use the rip paper, you get that kind of naturally not straight, fuzzy, or pointy edge, which is, you know, a nice effect and makes it look more tree-like. So I'm just going to do some really skinny, and for these I think I'm just going to use my scissors and cut them. Some really skinny branches on those little trees. So you can see this is a pretty simple project. It really doesn't take a long time, but you get really, I think, amazing looking results. So here's one little branch. Okay, so that, you know, you can add more. It's really whatever you like, but I'm gonna stop right there with my gluing. And at this point, you really can be done with your torn paper landscapes. However, if you want to add a few more details, now is the time that we can go in with a Sharpie to do that. So a Sharpie is going to match our black paper, that silhouette look. So these are going to be the tiniest branches, which you could do with paper, but it's going to, you know, get a little difficult and get messy fingers to kind of glue those tiny little branches. So it might just be easier to go in and add some detail with a Sharpie. So that's what I'm doing now. And when you're using your marker, you have a lot of control. So I did a thicker line here with the tinier branches coming out. And that it is a lot faster to do it this way than trying to glue all those tiny little details. But you can really go to town adding as much or as little as you think looks good. So I think that side is looking pretty good. I think maybe we need another thicker branch coming out here. And I think this guy needs a little bit more. He's looking a little naked here, needs a little more detail. And then that side is looking good to me. And then I'm just gonna add a little more on this tree all the way on the right in front of the sun. You can go ahead and color right on top of that sun. The sun is nice and yellow, so that black is really going to stand out and make a nice contrast. And I think that is done. So you can see how with just a few simple steps, we have created a really beautiful landscape. Hope you enjoyed.